It's crazy. You know what's crazy she's saying that? Let me tell you, I had a $26,000 GI Bill. Never used it. I got a couple $1,000s, I stopped. So we had friends that you just had to take like 6 courses or 2 courses, whatever it was, and they would send you to $1,200 every month. Whatever the course was, it was, you could. So guys weren't working and they were just taking a GI Bill that would come to you. And then there were certain people that are like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm going to go out there and, do something else. But I can see that pride level of, being high then. But today, man, you know what I said to the guy? Here's what I said to Noam yesterday. All night I've been thinking about this conversation. I said, Noam, let me ask you a question. I said, I read your books. I watch your documentary. He has a new documentary that came out, Requiem of the American Dream. I may not even be pronouncing that word right.
Requiem
of the American Dream. And so I said, if I had 100 students that knew nothing about America, they don't have an opinion about America. Like imagine if you took me at 18, I don't really have an opinion about America. I wasn't a guy that paid attention in history class, 1.8 GPA guy. I'm not like, all of a sudden, 21, I started reading books, right? I said, if I give you 100 students that went into your class and you taught them, by the time the semester's over with, they're going to hate America. They're going to hate America.
Mm-hmm. You asked him that question or you made that point?
I said, because everything you're talking about, it's like, go and you know what was the scariest part? Here's the scariest part. 60 years he's been a professor at MIT. God. 60. So imagine 60 years of saying his philosophies. So my brain went to my son. My oldest son wants to be a scientist. So guess what I'm selling him on? MIT. So I'm saying, you're going to go and be taught by... what the hell is a person spending so much? I'm not saying it's everybody. I'm not saying it's everybody.
But by the way, I mean, A, I took Noam Chompsky to task in my book Fed Up. B, at the root of the rot at the Federal Reserve and this idea that we can print all the money is what we call the MIT Mafia. We call it the MIT Mafia because of how economics is taught, how people are brainwashed at that institution that is considered to be one of the best economic institutions in the country. The other one, did you mention Thomas Sowell? Did you mention Stanford?
Of course.
The opposite end of the intellectual
spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we need a lot more of them at the Fed than we need the MIT Mafia.
Well, you've seen the painting I have in my office, the one with Milton Friedman in there. You'd be amazed how many people come and say, why would you put that guy on there? All he cared about was profits. All he cared about is profits, right? The whole thing. But Milton Friedman, the black guy, he gets is the fact that all he cared about was profits. But we need more Milton Friedman. If anybody, like Ricky, you've seen Ricky's Passion?
Of course.
Ricky, prior to working with us, never followed capitalism. He wasn't like a capitalism guy. Ricky was a guy that grew up in a Mexican, what do you want to call it? Michoacan?
Cartel?
I don't want to say it, but, he's been in the whatever levels of his family, very powerful family. He's been around that for a while, right? He openly talks about it himself. Mm-hmm. You know what's the first video I told him to watch? I said, if you really want, I'm going to give you a video to watch, but be very careful. He says, what's that? I said, if you watch one, you're going to go down a rabbit hole. You're going to watch 100 of his videos.
What, Milton Friedman?
Milton Friedman, Phil Donahue, when they talked about greed. And he told Phil Donahue, he says, well, what do you say about all these rich people that are so greedy and all they care about is money? And then Milton Friedman said, it's always the other guy that's greedy. You're not the one that's greedy. It's always the other guy, right? Always the other guy that's greedy. We forget that we're greedy. You're telling me you're not greedy, Phil? People here are not greedy? Who's the only one that's greedy? The government not greedy? Nader's not greedy? I'm sorry, but you're being a little too naive, that whole part when he had the exchange. Yep. Mm-hmm. If a person wants to learn about economics, go down the rabbit hole of Milton Friedman. Look what will happen to your brain a month later. Then go listen to the opposing argument and try to put those two together and see what happens. Yeah, to me, all I thought about is if kids are going to school and that's going to be the influence of, like, if a regular kid was sitting there saying, why would you love America? You're supposed to love your family. And why would you love America? Why would you love this? Why would you love that? I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyways, I think there is a major shift on the way kids are thinking. And I hope it doesn't go in the direction, because yesterday I was on our Armenian podcast. This girl named Sona was interviewing me, very professional. She's been in the media side in LA for a while, done some interviews, Larry King, all that stuff. Very attractive and very well spoken, but specifically on the Armenian side. And we were talking about media. She's asking me all these different questions about media. And what about Armenians this? What about Armenians that? And I said, look, you have to realize what's going on right now with education. She says, Armenia, do you have any opinions of what happened? I said, Armenia got bought by China. China put $14 billion into Armenia. I said, you realize once you do that, you're owned by China. So China's going around slow. You know, yesterday a couple people on Chinese, what do you call it, government went out and tweeted. You read the story that they went out their own Weibo, not tweet about India, making fun of India. Look at India. They're doing 400,000 cases. The government officials are making fun of India, why India is going, because India doesn't want to go in bed with China, so they're taking shots at them. India's telling China, we don't want you, and look what China's doing. You don't want us? No problem. They have a vaccine shortage? No problem. Look at the way they're controlling the vaccine shortage. Where is it coming from? This is a very interesting game plan these guys have put together for the last 30, 40 years. And FYI, one guy said something to me, says, this is nothing new. This has been going on for a long time. This is Chinese's. You forget, this is not a 200-year-old nation. This is not. This is thousands. They're experts in war. What are you talking? They can do a clinic on war.
If you study that part of the world, India and Australia and New Zealand are kind of isolated economically, and China's everywhere else.
You think eventually somebody's going to get elected in India and they're going to cave in, do business with China and take money from them?
It depends on where we are.
I hope that never happens, because I think if there's one country that is the one China doesn't want to see excel, I think it's India.
It's because of the demographics.
I think it's in 1.3, what is the number? 1.2? Is it 1.6?
It's the only country that has a larger population than China. Yeah, so of course
that's
between China and India, that's like half the population of the world.
If they figure out how to, at this point, what has India figured out? They got the best engineers. They produce some of the best engineers.
They do. What they don't have is infrastructure.
They don't have infrastructure. That's the problem. Yeah, I agree.
But hello, we're the United States of America. We can't build roads here, but we can help them build roads. Don't hit the infrastructure button.
While we're on the topic of China and everything that Danielle talked about, your story with the World War I and the World War II, the vets come in. It's actually the timeline of that. It's actually amazing, because it kind of culminated in the late 50s, early 60s, and that's probably why JFK said, "Don't ask what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." So it's interesting that culminated in that.
And that was when we had the space race. I got goosebumps when you said science and MIT. If we keep this space race going, then we'll figure out income inequality. If we can get rid of the teachers' unions that have just about, if anybody doesn't understand that post-coronavirus, that the teachers' unions do not have the children's best interests at heart.
Thank you.
Unpack that.
Look, I live in Texas. My kids have been in the classroom every single day. Social distancing, masks, be careful. Every single day of the school year. My kids, there are blueprints all across America for how to do this. All you need is one school to get it right and then replicate. That's all you need. And yet you've got teachers unions in Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, holding mothers and Mr. Moms. Absolutely, I have to be careful about that. I get slaughtered by the dads who are like, I'm the dad at home. I'm like, okay. But keeping half of the income out of the household, because one parent has to be there to supervise virtual learning. And it is, if we cannot figure out how to put, and this is something that people can do, by the way. There is this thing called the Constitution. We don't have to wait for the Democrats and the Republicans to duke it out. We can get rid of collective bargaining via the Constitution. We forget that we have that. We can get rid of term limits via the Constitution. Hell, you have to dust off the politicians in Congress right now. They've been there for so long. But there are things that can be done in this country with the Constitution, by the people, for the people, that don't revolve around politics that's broken. But teachers' unions have to go. When you think of the space race in the 50s and the best era in this country, we were sending somebody to the moon. And kids were waking up and saying, I want to be an astronaut. And their parents were like, you want to be an astronaut? You better study your math. You better study your science. But they wanted that. They had the desire. So I'm watching the modern day space race today, and I'm like, go for it. You can't tell children to get excited about math and science, but you can show them. And they can want to succeed. And if we start home growing our brain power, as opposed to importing it into our graduate programs, and then re-exporting it to India and China, think of what we could do as a country. But you got to get rid of the teachers' unions first.
Daniel, with the space race, though, I feel like in the 50s and the 60s, it was such a new thing. Are you kidding me? We're going to space. Like, what? Like, mind blown. Now it's like Elon Musk did another rocket today. NASA did another thing. Like, it's so, we take it for granted. Like, I don't feel like it's that, it has the allure that it had when
I
it
don't
was
know
such a
about
new
that.
thing.
I don't know about that.
I don't know.
What's the number? How many people have been to, what, 569?
569 humans have been to space.
569 out of how many people?
Like 7 billion?
No doubt that it's amazing,
Alive
it's cool,
today.
but it's not what it was
10
in
billion
in the late
since
50s.
1900.
I
where
disagree, buddy.
You think it still has the
Did
same
you just
allure?
hear the statistics? 569 out of 8 billion people have been. Are you like, that's a very
So
big
what-
deal.
but
to-
what does that mean, though?
Back
Just
up,
because
back up the
that-
truck, Adam. What were we just talking about? Controlling semiconductors, controlling science, right? What if there's rare earths up there? What if we can mine some of that stuff?
Look, I'm all about space. I'm just saying, I think a lot of people aren't. Look, prior to 1960, how many people had been to space? 0. Now, a lot of people have been to space. 500 something people. Look, I'm not downplaying the importance of going to
Shame
space.
on you.
I'm all about
I
America.
thought you had
all
a
about
man
the
crush
space.
on Musk.
I love.
wait,
I have a
wait,
man.
wait.
I
The
love
lifestyle.
the moon.
The lifestyle.
I'm just saying.
I don't think
now,
you're right.
Now you got Musk and Bezos having a war, and then when
That's good.
when-
That's good
okay,
for
that's great. I
capitalism.
think that's great. And then
Great.
it's so trivialized that Musk will tweet at Bezos like, "Oh, look who can't get it up," wink, wink. Like, it's
That's
become
because he's a
marginal.
comedian.
No,
yeah,
I-
well,
yeah.
he'll be on SNL this weekend.
I disagree with this. And I'll point you to 2 things, and you can go look at the ratings on TV and with the interest of America and people around the world.
Disclaimer: Father's a rocket scientist. You just
Okay.
offended him, so I
Yes.
just want you to know.
That's
Back up.
That's correct. My mom's dad, my grandfather was a machinist making machine parts. Southern
Yep.
California aerospace industry. He was just a machinist, blue collar, but he was making parts for his important stuff. My dad, yes, was a rocket scientist,
I'm
mathematician.
sorry for offending your dad, the rocket.
No, it's
scientist.
okay. It's okay. Screw you,
Mr.
The,
Ellsworth.
He says
So-
with a smile.
So there's 2 things that you saw. One was, and it goes back about, this is like 6 years ago. Remember when the Red Bull stunt guy Felix went up to the edge of atmosphere
Yep.
and jumped? It was the
Yep.
highest skydive of all time.
Yep.
Did you see how many people were watching that and how interested they were and all those things was going on? There was nothing going on but him talking to the guy going all the way up, and then he did it. The second thing is when Elon Musk just, 4 months ago, brought the first 2 astronauts back, astronaut Dave and astronaut Bob, whatever the guys were. Remember those? Astro Dave, Astro Bob. And he brought them back, and they landed, and they showed
Yes.
the ship picking up the capsule. America was enthralled. Wow, somebody other than NASA pulled this off. Go look at the ratings on that. I don't think you're correct. I think there's a lot of interest in what's going on there, and that people are pretty amazed that the stuff is happening, whether it's NASA or Elon Musk.
What percentage of the country was interested in that story? Give me a number. What percentage of the country was interested in that story?
I don't know, but the ratings were huge.
Okay, but just give me a percentage.
Adam,
Right.
this is a very qualified moment to say, what the hell is your point? Like,
Yeah,
where,
I'm just
where are
saying.
you going with this?
100% of the country was interested in 1960. Maybe it's 20% now.
Oh my God!
Look, get to space.
On all the trading floors on Wall Street when they landed the probe on Mars. I mean, CNBC, Bloomberg, everything turned off. We watched that landing. I mean,
I'm
I just got
pro-space. I'm not
I just got
anti-space.
goosebumps
I'm
talking
just
about. Okay,
saying.
add this to your
When
list of
we did
things
it for
to
the
not
first time,
talk
it was a
about with
big-
women.
Since
Just
Why
you-
haven't
leave
we
it
been
off.
to the moon since 1960?
So tell us, when you were in high school in 1960s, what
Yes.
was it like when,
I gotta tell you, it was
He's
huge.
not
It was
going
a
to
big
experience
deal. It
that
was a big
Sopo
deal.
Sapien thing.
I think
No,
you just want to be
no.
an astronaut in the ocean. That's, I think, what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to get out there.
Oh, I get to swim at some point. Very cool.
I think it was
Yeah, like
a
Gus
bigger
Grissom.
deal in the 60s than it is today.
What I think she was, the point she was trying to make is to get kids to dream again.
Yes.
Let's go do the
Yes.
impossible.
I'm all about
Whatever
that.
the hell is the. I talked to Dr. Is it Michi Akaku? I may not be saying the name right. You know who he is? He's a theoretical physicist. He's like one of those
What's the French pronunciation of his name?
Listen, I'm going to butcher it if it's English or whatever it may be.
Dr. Michi Akaku.
Akaku. I actually think I got that one right. Michi Akaku. The other one, I totally
Cockapoo,
butchered
small
it.
dog.
So
The Asian guy.
Yeah,
With
let
the
me
white
tell-
hair.
Top 15
That
favorite
guy's
interviews of all
ridiculous.
time.
Yeah, that
Favorite
guy's
interviews of all time,
ridiculous.
top 15. So,
Stop, go.
So I'm talking to him, and I said, so tell me, is there civilization out there? At this point of the game, we know there's civilization out there. I said, you said once, let's stop trying to find out about them, because if we do find out about them, what if they are 10 times more powerful than us, right? And I said, okay. I said, so here's a question for you. He says, I said, do you think there's a twin of America not America, of the Earth out there as in space, another Earth out there? He says, I'm willing to bet there is. And what's scary is they may be millions of years ahead of us. You know what I said? I said, I don't think that's possible. He says, why do you think that is? I says, you really think this thing's going to continue? I said, you don't think there's an end time to this? He says, what do you mean? I say, you think like we're going to go the way we're going right now and not one insecure, crazy, offended. I said, what happened in Germany? Do you remember the guy with the weird looking mustache? Do you know half the story why he did what he did is because he was offended. Because somebody offended him, so he kept that grudge for a long time. What are you going to do if another kid comes and gets offended and he keeps it for years and all of a sudden his vision is to destroy everything? You think, he says, well, that's level one. You're thinking about this. I think internet's going to do this. Then we talked about whether we can time travel. He says, that's a possibility. He says, this is how you do time travel. So, but you know how it sounds crazy. Think about it if you sit there and say, you know what, I want to go to 1985. Okay, and then he explained how to go back in time. He says, because if you go back in time and you save one of your parents from dying or something, now you're messing up with the future and all this stuff. Says, then you're going to go into 3 dimensions. Listen, I honestly, I felt like I was on LSD and I was on no drugs at that time when he was talking.
Have you not seen Ant-Man?
Yes, of course I have.
Right.
I have. But the whole thing is, look, it was like, how do I describe this to you? It was what was the word that we started off with? The sexual.
Oh, the sapiosexual.
It was honesty porn for sapiosexual community. That's what it was. Okay, that's a good way of putting it, right? That's what it was. Because you just listen to this guy, like, oh my gosh. Now, can we time travel? I don't know. The fact that somebody thinks we can't, that's exciting to want to go out there and do the impossible. So, Adam, to the community of people that party with you in Miami that could care less about what we can invent, we respect them a lot. We salute them tremendously. But to the other community that wants to find out what the hell is in space, I applaud them to go find out. Yep. I'm actually very curious myself. So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.